We're continuing our web series on digital dementia-like symptoms in adolescents and teenage kids, but technology effect throughout all age ranges is really what we're talking about, right? And so one of the more common questions I get is, what's an appropriate amount of time? Well, I can answer that question, but it's also about content, right? And we'll talk about that later. But this one, I'm really just going to kind of focus on time and kind of what the goal during that time and age range should be. So, it's certainly divided by ages. And so I'm going to kind of use the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization's guide as kind of what I'm going to kind of go through here with you guys. So less than 18 months, the amount of screen time is 0. That's the appropriate amount. That's the safe amount. The one exception is if you're FaceTiming with maybe a grandparent that's out of state, or maybe a mom or a dad that's out of the area for business or work, or maybe they're serving in the military or something like that. Then some screen time in that video conferencing is considered acceptable. But beyond that, really the correct number is 0, right? And then from 18 to 24 months, they do say that the goal should be 0, right? But, if we are going to start to introduce it, it should be less than an hour, so like 30 minutes or so, and it should be high quality content. And the goal here should be that you're watching it with the kiddos, and helping them to kind of understand, and you really want to protect, this is where content obviously really is important. What are they watching? Something like Sesame Street or something like that would be appropriate. Obviously, anything beyond that is probably not. Preschool ages, 3 to 5, they claim that up to 1 hour is considered safe. I don't know that that's truly accurate, because again, this is when brain centers are developing, especially our logic centers and our personality centers, and so we've talked about how technology interacts with our brain and starts to scramble things up. But they say up to an hour is okay. But again, the goal here is high quality content, and the other thing is that you're actually watching it with the kiddos, so it's not a digital babysitter for you, right? You can't just park them in front of the TV and check out on them, right? They really suggest that this is where you're interacting, you're watching with them, and you're helping them to try to figure out, especially, if you're watching Sesame Street or PBS or whatever, that you're starting to figure out, okay, how does this apply to the real world? And starting to ask those questions, what's the behavior here? Was that good? Is that bad? Those kinds of things, if you're going to allow the kids to have some TV time. So again, parents, you don't get to check out, right? Elementary age, 6 to 10 years old, in that range, they say an hour to an hour and a half per day is considered safe and okay. And kind of what the goal here is, that you're starting to allow them to understand and utilize and how to interact with technology a bit, right? And as they grow, maybe we can start to give them a little bit more control. But what we really need to be focused on is that it really is kind of a reward to be able to interact with technology, right? It's not a right, it's not a obligation to them, that they can earn some screen time, if you will. That's one of the tips that were discussed throughout the trainings that I went through, is that this age group it's a reward, and it can be earned, but it's not a requirement for them. And you really need to help them understand that whatever schoolwork needs to be done, whatever chores need to be done, those are the kinds of things that, have they exercised? Did they eat healthy? Those kinds of things are what gets the opportunity to have some screen time. As you start to move into middle age years, 11 to 13, they say up to 2 hours is considered safe. And really at this point, this is really where parents, as we're kind of in there in that preteen years, we need to be spending time talking about content, talking about what's real, what's make-believe, what's fake, the social media aspects of things, if you're going to start to introduce them to that or not. I would question whether that's appropriate at this age, but you really just need to be interacting with them. If they're playing a video game way too much, talking to them and helping them understand that they cannot sacrifice their health because of technology. They still got to get up and move. They got to eat right. They got to do their homework. Doing those kinds of things, and helping them also understand that why they're utilizing technology, right? Is it to serve a purpose, or is it simply because they're bored and they're looking for a little dopamine stimulation? Are they becoming addicted to it? These are things during that age range that we really need to be kind of watching. And then as we move into the teenage years, this is where content, right? Um, and so, the scary thing with this is if you notice up to the age of 13, it's either zero, but at most 2 hours per day. The average kid nowadays is spending over 7 hours on technology per day. It's actually 7.5 hours per day on technology, which to me is just mind boggling because, I know that that's not how our house works, but yet at the same time, I know that a lot, the digital babysitter is utilized a lot by a lot of parents. And so, and trust me, I know it's tough being a parent and all of that, but we really got to check ourselves and ask, okay, why am I allowing my kid to utilize technology? Is it to serve a purpose? Is it to help them understand the world? Technology is there for a reason. We need to utilize it appropriately. And so those are kind of the age ranges and content kind of thing. We're going to get more into practical tips and steps and things like that. But there's a couple of apps out there that you can look at. One is Zift, kind of helps you manage what content is available for the kiddos. And Screen Time is one that limits the amount of time that they're on there as well. And there's several other good apps. But parents, I do recommend it, especially if you're going to start allowing kids to utilize technology a little bit more, that you have some of these protective things in place. We wouldn't allow a kid just go run out in the street and play in the street, right? We would have some protective things in place, looking both ways, those kinds of things. Well, we need to do that with technology as well. So I know this one's a little longer because I broke it down by age, but I hope you got something from it. Tune in next time as we continue our strategies to combat the negative health effects of technology and specifically digital dementia. Thanks for your time.